Hello, this is GBC News and GTV's continuous coverage of the death of Britain's longest-serving monarch, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. My name is Sarah Furi. Thursday, the 8th of September 2022, will go down in British history as a bleak September day. The reign of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II came to an end. She passed on at the Balmoral Palace. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II is revered across the globe. She is said to have captivated the world with a reign defined by grace, elegance, and tireless ethic work. She was also known to be kind-hearted, had great wisdom, and a wonderful sense of humor. As tributes pour in, we are also here at the residence of a former president of Ghana. He was Ghana's deputy foreign minister to the UK during the Busia regime. He became president in the year 2000, one of the privileged few presidents who had the chance or the opportunity to sit in the same chariot with the Queen. Today, our guest is former President John Agyekum Kufuor. We are here to solicit his tribute concerning the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. You're welcome to GBC News, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
It's just been a year ago since we came here to interview you about the passing of the Duke of Edinburgh, and we came to solicit your tributes about his passing, your relationship, your fond memories, and we are still here again, a year on. I would want to find out from you your relationship with Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Well, the Queen was an old friend of our nations, Ghana's friends. History would tell us she visited first time, I think around 1961, during the presidency, our first president, President Nkrumah. And I think she perhaps also visited subsequently. But in my tenure, I was privileged to meet her on several occasions, especially during the Commonwealth summits. For instance, I met her when there was a Commonwealth summit, and I think it was in Malta, the island of Malta, north of Africa, and then also in Kampala, Uganda, and then in Australia. And on all occasions, she attended, and as I say, I had the occasion to meet her, interact with her. What I found on all those occasions was that she was very well versed in international relations, especially in matters to do with the Commonwealth and also with the nations that had been part of the British Empire. And on all occasions, she impacted me with her insights. You may call it astuteness or wisdom, and also humanity. You sensed right away the vibes from her were that of a good human being. Very understanding, very caring, consistent, and I came to appreciate her very much. When in 2007, during my presidency, I received an invitation from her to go on a state visit, which is the height of the, if you like, visits among heads of state. And you would remember 2007 was also our Golden Jubilee anniversary. I think soon after that, she asked me to visit her. So, of course, I went with an entourage, my team, including my wife, of course. We landed in London. First, she received me, if you know London, a place called Horse Guards Parade. It's right behind the Prime Minister's office. And then from there you go on the mall, a mall which leads straight to the palace. There the honor guard was put on for me to inspect. There was a canopy under which she and some of the royalty and ministers stood. And then when the parade commander came to escort me, her husband, late Prince Philip, accompanied me to inspect the guard. And straight from there, you were talking of the carriage. A golden carriage was standing by, drawn by horses, and he invited me to ride with her. Wow. So that's how that opportunity came my way. And we drove all the way, we were ridden, of course, on the mall to the palace, Buckingham Palace, where, again, after the formalities of reception there, she and her husband escorted me to an apartment, me and my wife, of course, where we stayed, and for 3 days in the palace with them, with her and her husband. And then that was the height of hospitality, if I may put it that way. Because during the 3 days, they showed me the palace, told me of the history and all that, interacted with me, and streams of her family came to be introduced to me. I also met members of the British government. They came to pay, if you like, visit or, yes, with me. Then I think on the second or third day, she laid up a banquet to which she had invited 175 notables, including some of her family, her husband, her daughter, Princess Anne, and quite a few others. And then the Prime Minister of Britain, Tony Blair, some of the lords, some of members of parliament, ambassadors, and of course with people, some of my delegation. I think it was on the third floor of the palace. And before then, she had shown me the venue in which she had displayed silverware, if you like, goldenware, plates, special, very expensive things. Told me he had brought all these things from Windsor Castle. There was other abode there.
Just to fete you?
Yes, just for the banquet. I was beside myself. I couldn't. It was beyond me to appreciate why she was treating me like that. And then the evening of the banquet, my apartment was lower than where the banquet was taking place. But she had gone ahead with my wife to be in the receiving line of the guests, the invitees. And I put on my big kente cloth, wanting to also display our culture. Yes. The husband had to come for me, to escort me, to join her, my wife, to be in the receiving line to welcome visitors. So as they waited upstairs for us, the Duke of Edinburgh came in, said, oh, they were ready, so we should go. And so we went into a lift to take us up to join them. But the palace is an ancient place. The lift, also very ancient. We got in there, and halfway, and it's quite a tall building, the lift stalled. It wouldn't go. So the Duke started shouting for the houseman, who must be the mechanic working to get us down. Brown, get us down from here. So I heard a cranking, some metal being put into the mechanism to roll us down to the floor from where we were being lifted up. We got down there, and poor Mr. Brown, with grease and some duster, worked on them. We stood by for a bit, and then eventually Mr. Brown said that he thought the thing was fixed, we could go up. The Duke turned on me, "Oh, we are ready, could we go?" I looked at the lift, and then the steps were the staircase. So I said, no, I'd rather go by the steps than the... So the Duke smiled a bit and said, all right, let's walk it. And the steps stood like that. Wow. We walked the whole thing up. Me carrying my big kente, the Duke in his tailcoat and all. But the Duke was 15 years older than me, and yet the man was going soldier. And me, as I went up a bit, I felt my kente was falling down. But I followed him, and eventually we got to where the Queen and my wife stood. And the Queen was a bit, I don't know if it was embarrassment or what. Said, why are you late?
Why have you delayed?
And then the Duke explained that the lift didn't work. And then before we joined the visitors, he and the husband took me around to show me the gifts that they had received from Ghana. Some from former presidents, from some of our chiefs, and they had displayed everything there. Be displayed to me and my wife. Of course, we also sent I sent some necklace of precious bead from Ghana, a bit of gold and ancient beads. They also, we showed them what we had sent them. And they relish such treasures. Of course, that's history. History is very important. And then after the exchange of gifts, he also showed me insignia, because they knighted me. Gave me the Knight Commander of the Order of Bath, very high post, the honorary, of course. So I thanked her, and then we came back to stand where the visitors were passing to the dining place. And then there, I think about 9 Scottish pipers, the bagpipes. They marched in, led by a very hefty commander. I think he's a pipe commander or whatever, the pipe major they called him. The Queen introduced them to me. These are my pipers, or her pipers, of course. That the commander every morning, when the Queen was in residence at Buckingham Palace, would pipe around the compound to wake her. It was something. So the commander saluted, and then the Queen said we could go in to dine. And the pipers sort of started blowing their horns in front of us to the banqueting hall. 175 people already seated. They stood up, marched around before the Queen, her husband, myself, my wife, the Princess Anne, or Princess Royal. I sat between the Queen and her daughter, Princess Royal. And with the conversation, very, very personal, and welcoming, relaxing. An asset she had was to relax people she was interacting with. And so that was something. But through the conversations there, the whole thing was, I felt you knew my country so well, the history, and the way she appreciated the country. And she made me very relaxed.
She really understood hospitality.
Exceptionally. Exceptionally. You didn't feel the weight of her office. Like some people would go pompously. No, it wasn't like her. Came down to earth and talked with you, and then understood the international relations of the times. They are not supposed to do, say, partisan politics, but they understood politics, power. Understood power. So discussed things, international relations, what's happening here, what's happening there. And then the dinners went on. And then later, I had to make a statement, an address, proposing the toasts, thanking her for her friendship with my country and all that. And she also responded. And that was the next day, which was the end of the sort of official visit to the palace. He put at my disposal her very personal vehicle. Yes, a huge Daimler, two-tone color. I think it's wineish under and then black on top with a lot of glass on top. So people saw you without riders for me to drive around town, London. So that's the Queen. I remember her very well, fondly.
That's an interesting recount of your visit to the UK. But let me draw you back a bit to the days when you were a student in the UK. You also worked there for a while before you came back.
That was as far back as 1959.
Wow.
And 1960.
I see.
Windsor Castle is in a park. It's a Windsor town. But the castle is sort of the dominant feature of the area, and around it, a huge park called Windsor Park, Great Windsor Park. And in the park, there's something they call lodge, but it's more like a castle, small castle called Cumberland Lodge. And I think the royal family had given it as a place for international students to be invited to from time to time, especially over Christmas and other festive occasions. So in my first year in Britain, I went to Britain 59. I got invited, 59 for the Christmas, to experience. They want to expose foreigners or strangers to their culture a bit. Okay. So I got invited for the Christmas of 59 there. And there were students from the United States, some from the Caribbean, and some from Africa. And I was invited. And gathering also, of course, some of the British people, especially the...
How old were you by then?
20 years.
Oh, okay. So did you at that time ever dream that you could get invited to the Buckingham Palace?
No, Buckingham Palace, everybody knew but Buckingham Palace was there, but that's the residence of the Queen. Okay. How could I think I would get there? To do what? You just stood out and observed the place like a tourist attraction or center. But it didn't occur to me that a day would come when I would stay in there with the Queen and her husband and some of her family. Okay. So 59, Christmas, from the Cumberland Lodge, we were invited to attend the Christmas Eve. And so we were doing, their big church in the castle, Windsor Castle, is called St. George's. They said we wanted to see the way they spent their Christmas. And so we were driven from the lodge, and to drive from the lodge to the castle would be about a mile or two. Very straight road, narrow, but through the... apparently they did the road in imitation of the ancient Roman road, Appian Way, straight from Cumberland Lodge to that was my first experience, and into that church to spend the Christmas Eve again with some of the royalty who attended there.
Okay. So we are live on GBC News and GTV. We are covering the death of Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. We are here talking to former President John Agyekum Kufuor, who is sharing fond memories with us about the Queen. Your Excellency, during the time you were Deputy Foreign Minister to the UK during the Busia regime, what would you recall was our foreign relations with the UK?
Ghana's relationship with Britain has always been like special. We relate with them. They colonized us for about 100 years, and then we gained independence from them. And then the Queen was our head of state from 57 to 1960, July 1st, before our first president, President Nkrumah, who had been prime minister since independence. We did the referendum to convert us from monarchy to republic. So we became a republic in 1960, July 1st. Till then, the Queen was the head of state of Ghana. And then, since then, Nkrumah got on well with her. Nkrumah too, I think, was invited on state visits. And subsequently, presidents before me, either they went there on official visits. Official visit is like you meet her, she would receive you, talk with you, discuss matters relevant to the relationship. But that's different from the state visit. State visit is where she would ride the coach with you. The chariot with the coach, they call it. I think on that, I don't know, I think I must have been the first president who have been given that treat of riding with her in her coach.
Did you ever expect that during your presidency, or it just came as a surprise to you?
It was a bit of a surprise in the sense that coach, ancient appendage of, is it royalty? So I got the guard of honor, and then after the coach, drawn by horses, and then all the fanfare and panoply and so forth and so on. It was something. And right to the palace, and then me staying there. And the other thing that also delighted me was they made provision for some of my delegation also to stay in the palace for 3 days.
Let's go down history lane when she took the reins of power. Before she became queen, after the father, she was really actively involved in the affairs of the monarchy. But would you say that she came to the task with some sense of purpose and commitment?
I would think so, because she might be described as having hit the ground running. Without preparation, I tell you, she wouldn't have thought of. The point is, her father really wasn't meant to be king, because with them, their rule of succession is called primogeniture. That firstborn automatically succeeds. Like she passed on immediately, her firstborn Prince Charles is king. Her father's elder brother, called Prince Edward, or Prince of Wales, and he too visited Gold Coast ancient times.
Oh, I see.
Yes. But somehow, when it came to Prince Edward's turn to be king, he was king. Didn't get crowned. Somehow over marriage, he sort of abdicated from the throne, and the Queen's father, being the second born, instantly found himself being sort of thrusted into the monarchy, into the throne. And the Queen, being her father's firstborn, the father had 2 children, 2 girls, then came in line to succeed as queen. But along the way, and I think her father came to the throne by 1938 or 39.
Yes. 36,
So,
actually.
36,
Yes.
is it 36? Yeah, good. That time the Queen was born. The Queen apparently was born 1926, 10-year-old.
Yeah.
So once the father became king, and she became the next in line, heiress apparent, that I'm sure they started preparing her that a time would come when she might be sort of drafted to succeed. So they must have prepared her. And we read, for instance, during the Second World War, she even served a bit in their war effort in that country. So she must have been prepared a bit.
She's the longest, obviously the longest monarch to have served in her tenure. We are told she witnessed the swearing in of 15 British prime ministers, 13 American presidents, 12 Canadian prime ministers. She's witnessed the Cold War, the World War, and all of that. Would you say that she has this sense of resilience to be able to brave through those times?
She would have, yes. 70 years, it's a long time. I'm sure you were not born.
No, my parents hadn't met.
And look at that. And as I sit here, I was born 38.
Okay.
38 December, so virtually 39 started.
Thank you.
And Queen became Queen, is it 52 or 53?
Yes, after the father's passing, yes, 1953.
52, and was crowned 50. So I was just about 13 or 14. And for her to have been there on the throne all this time without resilience, there's no way she could have, with all the challenges her country had been through. So she's definitely a resilient, resourceful, very competent, astute person. And don't forget, the Commonwealth organization encompasses over 56 nations. Don't forget their language, English, is perhaps the most spoken language around the world these days for business, for diplomacy, for everything. And everybody wants to have some relationship with them. And the City of London, till perhaps even now, would be counted as the financial center, one of the 2 or 3 financial centers in the whole world. And if you are head of state of such a place, and you are not up to it, you'll be shown up. So she must have what it takes to be.
She's said to be the rock of modern day Britain.
I've heard that, and I'm not surprised, because the monarchy there is not supposed to indulge in partisan politics. Mother of the nation, and truly, it's put a very elegant and enlightened, if you like, cover for over the ambitions of rivaling political parties, of diverse ideologies and political outlooks. So no matter how powerful the prime minister could be, they would always defer to the throne, which is the Queen, over the past 70 years. They've had some very tough prime ministers and opposition parties. For instance, during the Suez War, Suez Canal, you know,
Yes.
Israel-Egypt warfare.
Yes.
A prime minister, then quite popular, Anthony Eden, had to step down. That time, I think it was the Queen. So she must have overseen that. And then Macmillan visited Ghana, that one I remember, on our independence or after. And then the changes of government, all of them deferred somehow to the Queen. And
So
she managed to keep the balance between the Conservatives and the Labour Socialists. So she must
So
have
what would
something
you
very
say
good.
is remarkable about the British monarchy?
Well, you know the history. That country, they say over 1,000 years, they hadn't, or they still say they haven't suffered defeat ever. And they used to boast during their empire times and even into that the sun never set on their spread over the globe. Till I think about 300-400 years ago, one of their kings got beheaded. Charles I, incidentally, Prince Charles is now Charles III.
Yes.
And there was a break, and then the monarchy was restored later when the coup maker, if I may describe that, Cromwell, died, but the people had regretted. So the special hold of the monarchy is that it's the stabilizing factor of that nation. And somehow, at least so far, if you look at history, it would seem the people feel they own the monarchy. It belongs to the people. So the people would rise to protect it. So like you watch television now, you see how they are thronging to Buckingham Palace or to Windsor Castle, going with flowers, some even weeping and all that. The people own the throne, the monarchy. And this is why, with their current practice of the constitutional monarchy, as they describe it, the queen or king would not indulge in partisan politics. But then you wouldn't be a prime minister without going to get the say-so or permission of the monarch. It's ingrained in the people of Britain that power, their power of governance, issues from the throne. So that's the special feature, I think.
But in recent times, the monarchy, probably, should I say, suffered negative media publicity.
Oh, yes.
Do you think that probably waned the popularity of the monarchy?
Well, the Queen personally has, or had, because she's gone now, overridden any time there had been a scandal or so. Incidentally, the scandals have tended to come not from her personally, but from some relatives. And the people are careful to distinguish between her and the members who had gone astray. And I think that had been a saving factor. The people are aware. They know what they want for the stability and peace of their country.
So do you think that that negativity would have probably been wiped off and probably the love for the monarchy revived with her death?
I would expect that the way they tend to prepare their likely successors to the throne, like the new king, Charles III, incidentally, she'd been very close with his mother, had been heir apparent. They don't use the term now, but once they give you the title of Prince of Wales, then it's clear that you are coming in to take over some. They prepare you.
Yes.
They make you appreciate the nature of power and then the relationship you should keep with your parliament, both government, opposition, and all that. So perhaps the institution would remain.
Okay, so she's said to have carried herself with dignity and reverence. Do you think King Charles III also carries such aura to maintain the monarchy?
Well, if you like, the king, the new king, is undergoing some change.
Transformation. Okay.
Transformation. And it comes with awareness, one, of yourself, of your history, of the responsibilities of the office you've been ushered into. And since, as I say, they trace their history way back, if the occupant is a normal person, he will be careful not to give in to his proclivities, the peccadillos that would bring scandal and confusion. I'm sure. Unfortunately for him, he's now 73. So it's not like...
So Prince William may likely to take over soon.
Oh, Prince William, I don't know.
Okay.
The Prince William's grandmother, the Queen, lived to 96. Longevity is in there. Father is 73 and is not a sick man as far as I can see. So perhaps he too could live for 10, 20 years or so. So it's too early for her to begin to predict or try to prophesy things. We can only wish him well.
So, I mean, with the way Her Majesty carried herself about, would you say that the crown still carries this symbolic diplomatic power? Because globally, everybody reveres the Queen. I mean, speak of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth and everybody stands straight. Do you think today, with her demise, it will still carry such same diplomatic power?
I wouldn't want to separate the person from the institution too much in this regard.
Okay.
It's a role that I believe entails some spirituality. Spirituality born from ancientness, old times, that had been in the forefront of nurturing and maturing their nation into where it is, where the whole world now speaks English. Britain itself is a small country. Geographically, it's not much bigger than Ghana. It's not much bigger. But so the wonder is, how has this small piece of land, with a population not exceeding 70 million, how has it managed to spread out around the globe? So you talk United States, it's the creature of Britain.
Yes.
Canada, creature of Britain. Yes. Australia, India, with population that time verging on a billion, a colony of Britain. You come to Africa, so many parts. There's something in the way they've governed themselves, the way they've managed to visualize the world and strategize around to keep themselves always afloat. And that, so you can't give all the credit to just the goodness of one person. There's something in that institution. And for as long as they ensure the occupants of the monarchy are aware, as I said, of their history, the identity of their people, and the understanding of power, the international relations, geopolitics. For so long that country, tiny as it is, might still continue to be relevant in global affairs.
Okay, speaking of global affairs, I mean, leaders across the globe are all pouring tributes,
yes,
sharing their fond memories of her, eulogizing her. What would you also say about her as your tribute?
Above all, her humanity. That's what personally, I've had the opportunity to sit like this with her quite a few times. I've dined by her. And what came across very strongly was that she was a great human being of feeling, understanding, of appreciating people as people. It is, I believe, that touch that's at the core of her greatness. The institution has got history, great and all that, but the human person, I think, is that enabled her to relate so well with people from all over the place, and this is why I believe the world is mourning her.
It comes as no surprise because people cited rainbows at the Buckingham Palace and Windsor and all that. So it comes as no surprise that you describe her as a great human being.
But please.
She has some shortfalls, didn't she?
Naturally, it's a human being.
Okay.
But I talked of spirituality too. Yes. So seeing the rainbow, if you want to go superstitious, suppose it were here, people say, look at that, or this one, perhaps I say an angel or something like that. Yes. So she was definitely a very special person. Okay. But with all the human.
She had her shortfalls. What
Who
would you
hasn't?
recall? What would you recall as her shortfalls?
But that I wouldn't know.
Okay.
Look, if you are a Christian, they talk of, is it 7 deadly sins or so? Huh?
Yes.
Is it gluttony, eating too much, or lust? You understand lust?
Yes, I do.
Envy, so forth and so on. I don't believe there's anybody perfect. But on balance, you should be able to tell between a good person and not too good a person. Huh? But even as you begin to judge, look at yourself too and ask whether, with all your good intentions, you don't have some shortfalls.
Of course I do.
So I'm careful not to pronounce too much on people.
Okay. So what would you say would be her legacy to we, the young ones?
Let us be human. And if you center humanity in your value systems, then everything else falls into second place or third. Not religion, not tribe, not race, not gender. You are a human being, I'm a human being. Do unto me as you would I do unto you. Golden principle. And I believe she worked by this principle somehow. In spite of wanted position as queen and head of state of Commonwealth. Head of the Commonwealth, not states. So the humanity, as I said, I believe is the legacy we must all want to be good people. Of course, I'm saying that she had been sort of groomed. I'm sure they said she didn't attend normal schools, but that didn't mean that she wasn't educated well. So she must have taken pains about history and the ups and downs in human affairs in history. She traveled extensively, looking at various cultures, and so accommodation and tolerance must have been part of it. He also saw man's inhumanity to man. During the Second World War, the bombings and so forth and so on, the hardships, the poverty, she saw, and so she cleverly used all these things to enrich her personality, and making her, displaying even humility. Humility.
Your Excellency, John Agyekum Kufuor.
Yes, ma'am.
We really enjoyed our conversation with you.
Thank you for giving me the
tribute.
opportunity to pay tribute to her.
Thank you so much.
And
Any words
I
of
should also use the occasion to pay condolence to the bereaved family and the nation, as well as to wish the new king God's protection and also prosperity, long life, success as king.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Indeed, God Save the Queen will no longer be sung in the near future. It's now God Save King Charles III. Thank you so much for your time spent with us as we came to solicit the tribute of the former President John Agyekum Kufuor.
Lake Bosomtwe is derived from two names, water gods and antelope, locally known as Oching.